Captivating, bold, and intelligent, Angelique de Sanchy has been winning the hearts of readers for over 50 years. The literary mother of this beauty, writer and Golan, referred to her character as fictional, which is, of course, true. There was no Countess de Peyrac in France. However, there was a woman in Versailles who served as the inspiration for Golan's creation. Allow me to introduce Suzanne du Plessis Bellière. She is the true Angelique. Marie-Suzanne de Bruck de la Greve was older than her literary counterpart. She was born in the year 1605, while Angelique's age was adjusted to match that of the king. This was done to make the French monarch's infatuation appear more plausible. Although, in his youth, the Sun King often preferred older women. His first mentor was Madame Beauvoir, and passionate poems were even written about his love for the beautiful Angelique de Chatillon. Suzanne was distinguished by her rare common sense, ambition, and ability to make sound decisions. She received a good education and was unanimously recognized as a captivating figure at court. Her admirer and later husband was Jacques de Rugg, far from being the Count de Peyrac. This young man served as the prototype for Angelique's second husband, Philippe. He was known as a brilliant warrior and was also referred to as the Marquis de Plessis Bellière. The relationship between Suzanne and Jacques was tumultuous. Her husband suspected his beautiful wife of infidelity. After all, she was always in the spotlight, mingling with the well-known free thinkers of the time. Meanwhile, Jacques du Plessis Bellière was almost constantly at war, as France was actively involved in the 30 Years' War. By the middle of the century, the Marquis became a marshal and later took on the additional roles of governor of Rethel and Armentières. 7 years later, it was the Marquis de Plessis Bellière who commanded the army in Catalonia. He died on the battlefield, leaving Suzanne with 4 children. But like Angelique, Suzanne du Plessis Bellière was a woman with her head held high. After her husband's death, she withdrew for a brief period but then returned to Paris. She needed to think about the future of her sons and daughter, ensuring they wouldn't become country aristocrats, as her friend, lawyer Degre, aptly put it in a similar situation with Angelique. Here, the story of the Marquise took a new turn. She met a man who would become her Count de Peyrac. Though they were not married, their relationship was well known throughout Paris. Nicolas Fouquet, the superintendent of finances, became interested in Suzanne. Although Fouquet was involved with the lovely Marie-Madeleine de Castille, the reason for their union was openly discussed at court. The girl came with a substantial dowry, and Nicolas knew how to count money. He managed both of his marriages. Marie-Madeleine was his second wife, very successfully from a financial standpoint. Fouquet systematically built his fortune, often resorting to less than honorable methods, and eventually became a fabulously wealthy moneybag. "He was richer than the king," exclaimed Louis XIV in the novel about Angelique. But he was referring to Godfrey de Peyrac. In the same way, Nicolas Fouquet also became wealthier than the King of France. Fouquet transformed Suzanne into a dazzling lady. The Marquise de Plessis Bellière could afford any jewelry, hiring the best artists and sculptors to decorate her home. Her outings were considered the most luxurious in Paris, and even princesses envied her. But Suzanne was not just a beautiful accessory to the wealthy Fouquet. Thanks to her intelligence and knowledge, she assisted the superintendent in his affairs, and it was rumored that the Marquise was the one managing France's finances in the final years before Fouquet's downfall. Angelique's happiness shattered after a magnificent reception hosted by her husband for the King of France on his way back from Saint-Jean-de-Luz. Here, the stories are almost identical. Fouquet also hosted Louis, who had just married the Spanish Infanta. To entertain the king, several lavish celebrations were held at the superintendent's incredible estate, Vaux-le-Vicomte. The unimaginably opulent palace, stunning park, fountains, and dishes served to the king filled the young monarch with admiration and envy. He had not even a fraction of what Fouquet possessed. Naturally, it ended badly for the superintendent. Fouquet was arrested for embezzlement, and the king's order was executed by Charles d'Artagnan. Dark clouds gathered over Suzanne. She tried to throw herself at the king's feet, but it was all in vain. Fouquet was condemned, and sent to prison. The Marquise de Plessis Bellière was placed under house arrest at the Château de Montbrison. Only 4 years later was she allowed to leave her confinement and see her children. From that point on, Suzanne lived in her home near Paris. There is a prevailing notion that the Marquise of Angels was inspired by Louis's mistress, Angelique de Fontanges. This idea arose solely from the similarity of names. However, aside from that, there is nothing in common between the novel's heroine and the real woman. Fontanges was contemptuously described as dumb as a basket, while the character created by and Serge Golin is of a different caliber altogether. Moreover, Fontanges flared up in the Versailles sky like a bright star and quickly faded away, dying young after a brief stint as the king's mistress. That's why Fontanges is merely a namesake. She is not a prototype at all. Additionally, the name Angelique was not rare in that century. It was shared by Sister Angelique Arnaud and Angelique de Montmorency-Bouteville. This latter lady bears a much closer resemblance to the heroine of the novel than the fleeting lover of the Sun King. The Duchess de Chatillon played a significant role in French politics, just like the Marquise of Angels. She undertook diplomatic missions, and Louis greatly valued her contributions to understanding the intentions of other European rulers. As for Suzanne, the life of Golin's heroine was undoubtedly studied closely. At the very least, the similarities are evident. Daniel de Montplaisir shares this view, as his work on the Marquise of Angels was published in our time. In the new edition of Angelique, Suzanne du Plessis-Bellière is mentioned in the preface to the novel. Interestingly, after her fall from grace, she lived a long life. In her home, near Charenton, she regularly hosted writers and poets, all eager to converse with the woman who once caught the attention of Nicolas Fouquet.